Tonight, your dog will curl up near you, sigh, and fall asleep, safe and warm. But picture this same animal 30,000 years ago. Back then, its ancestor was not a friend, it was a monster in the dark. If you had lived in the Ice Age, the sound of wolves howling in the night meant danger. They were faster and stronger than you and saw far better in the dark. And yet, out of every creature on Earth, it was this fearsome animal that became our best friend. Not the horse, not the gentle cow, the wolf. So how did that happen? How did the predator at the edge of the firelight become the companion asleep on your couch? The answer is one of the strangest and most beautiful accidents in all of history. Stay with me to the end. Let us begin. Today, there are close to 1 billion dogs living on our planet. They sleep in our beds, they guard our homes, they sniff out danger, herd our sheep, pull lost survivors from the snow, and sit patiently in little party hats beside birthday cakes. They are woven so completely into our lives that we rarely ever stop to think about how astonishing the whole thing truly is. Because here is a truth that almost no one realizes. Nobody ever planned the dog. No ancient tribe gathered around a fire and decided to invent a loyal, fluffy creature that would one day fetch a ball and lick our faces. There was no grand design and no clever inventor. The dog, the single most successful partnership our species has ever formed with another animal, was very nearly a complete accident. Think about that. The most loyal friend humanity has ever had was never designed at all. It simply happened. And the strangest part of all is this. The wolves themselves may have begun the whole process, quietly, long before any human even understood what was happening right in front of them. To see how, we have to travel back to a world of ice and danger, a world where humans and wolves alike were simply trying to survive one more brutal winter. And we have to look, of all places, at the cold and shadowy edges of the campfire. Imagine the world as it was some 20 to 40,000 years ago. Humans lived as hunter-gatherers, in small bands of perhaps 20 or 50 souls, moving endlessly across vast landscapes in search of their next meal. Life was unimaginably hard. Most hunts ended in failure. The winters were merciless, and they killed without pity. A single broken leg could be a death sentence. And there, just beyond the warm circle of every human campfire, out in the cold and the dark, the wolves were waiting. Now here is the small detail that would change everything. Human beings are messy eaters. Even in times of near starvation, those ancient people left things behind. Bones and scraps, hides and half-eaten carcasses scattered all around their camps. And to a hungry wolf, a human camp was something truly extraordinary. It was a slow-moving mountain of free food. For an animal that so often went hungry, nothing in the world could have been more tempting. At first, the wolves would have kept their distance, watching warily from the shadows. The boldest among them began to creep a little closer. The aggressive ones, the ones who snarled and lunged, were met with spears, and they did not last long. And the truly terrified ones never came close enough to gain anything at all. But scattered through those wolf packs were a rare few who were simply different, a little less fearful, a little less aggressive, a little more curious about these strange creatures gathered by the fire. And those particular wolves, as it turned out, had stumbled upon the opportunity of a lifetime. They were not brave, and they were not clever. They were simply born a little less afraid than the rest. Because instead of risking their lives hunting dangerous prey out on the open plains, these calmer wolves could simply linger near the humans and feed on whatever was left behind. And so, generation after generation, a quiet kind of sorting began to take place. The friendliest wolves found the most food. The calmest wolves stayed the closest to camp and raised the most pups. And the fierce, the fearful, and the aggressive ones slowly faded away. No human was choosing them. No one was breeding them on purpose. Evolution itself was doing the work, gently filtering an entire species, not by size and not by strength, but by something far more surprising, by temperament, by friendliness. The wolves who could tolerate us, and whom we in turn could tolerate, were the ones who survived and multiplied. Kindness in that frozen and pitiless world had quietly become a survival advantage. In a very real sense, these animals may have begun to domesticate themselves, drawn in by the warmth and the food of our fires, changing just a little more with every passing generation, while the humans right beside them had no idea at all that they were witnessing one of the great transformations in the entire history of life. The dog was not invented in a single moment. It was coaxed into being, one quiet generation at a time. It sounds almost too strange to be true, and yet, remarkably, scientists have actually watched something very much like it unfold, right in our own time. In the year 1959, a Soviet scientist named Dmitry Belyaev began a now famous experiment deep in Siberia using foxes. He wanted to understand how a wild animal becomes a tame one, so he did something beautifully simple. With each new generation of foxes, he selected only the very tamest ones to breed. That was all. He did not train them, he did not teach them a single trick. He simply chose the calmest, least fearful foxes over and over again, generation after generation. And the results were astonishing. Within just a few decades, the foxes began to behave like dogs. They wagged their tails when people came near. They whimpered for attention. They licked the hands of their keepers. But then something even more extraordinary happened, something nobody had expected at all. The foxes began to look different too. Their ears grew floppy, their snouts became shorter, their coats developed patches of white, their tails started to curl. It seems that when you breed an animal for gentleness, its very body begins to soften right along with it. Scientists have since noticed this same pattern across many different species. Tame animals tend to develop kinder faces, smaller jaws, and floppier ears, almost as though calmness and cuteness somehow travel together. Which means the first proto-dogs were very likely beginning to look softer and friendlier long before any human ever set out to shape them on purpose. Friendliness, it seems, has a face, and it is a face we find almost impossible to resist. Before we go on, if you are finding this as fascinating as I am, take a moment to tap that like button. It truly helps these stories reach more people who love dogs the way that you do. Now, let us return to that ancient firelight. Because the humans, for their part, would have noticed the benefits of these strange new neighbors very quickly indeed. A wolf can hear sounds long before we ever could. It can smell a predator from an astonishing distance. It can track prey across terrain where a human would find nothing at all. A wolf lingering near a camp was, in effect, a living alarm system. When a bear drew near, the wolves reacted first. When strangers approached, the wolves sounded the warning. When game was close at hand, the wolves could help to find it. And so, once each species began to help the other survive, the whole relationship began to accelerate. This is the reason that dogs hold a truly remarkable title. They were the very first animal that humans ever domesticated. Earlier than sheep, earlier than goats, earlier even than farming itself. They were already at our side before we had built a single city, before we had forged a single tool of metal, before we had written down a single word. By the time the first great civilizations finally rose, the dog had already been our companion for an unimaginably long time. And when our ancestors finally did invent agriculture and began to eat far more grain, the dogs changed yet again, right alongside us. Their bodies gradually evolved to digest starch in a way that wolves simply never could. Stop and consider for a moment how deep that truly goes. These animals did not merely walk beside us through history, they reshaped their own biology again and again for no other reason than to stay close to us. No other animal has ever followed us quite so far or changed itself quite so completely simply to remain by our side. And over those countless thousands of generations, something happened that went far, far beyond mere survival. Humans and dogs slowly began to change one another from the inside out. When you gaze into your dog's eyes and your dog gazes back into yours, something quietly remarkable takes place inside you both. The two of you release a hormone called oxytocin, the very same chemical that floods a parent holding their newborn child. It is the chemistry of love and of the deepest kind of attachment. The same invisible bond that ties a mother to her newborn now tied a human being to an animal.
And here is the truly telling part. Wolves do not do this with us. Dogs do. That soft, adoring look your dog gives you from across the room is not an accident, and it is not a trick of your imagination. Evolution carefully shaped these animals to connect with the human heart. Dogs even developed expressions on their very faces that seem designed, in a sense, just for us. Scientists have discovered that dogs evolved a special little muscle that allows them to raise their inner eyebrows, creating that irresistible, soulful, pleading puppy dog look. And why on earth did that one expression spread so far and so wide? Quite possibly because, across thousands of years, we humans simply could not resist caring for the dogs whose faces seemed to speak straight to us. We chose them, without ever knowing we were choosing, because something in those eyes reached right inside us.
We were shaping them, and all the while they were quietly shaping us right back. Two creatures, a human and a wolf, slowly and patiently teaching one another how to love. And yet, for all that has changed, the wild wolf has never entirely vanished from inside them. The signs are still there, if you only know how to look for them. When your dog turns in a slow circle 2 or 3 times before lying down, it may be echoing an ancient instinct, ancestors flattening the long grass to make themselves a bed. When dogs howl, or bury a treasured bone, or twitch and paddle their paws in the middle of a deep dream, those are whispers from thousands of years ago, still rising gently to the surface. Inside the tiniest chihuahua and the fluffiest little lapdog, the shadow of an Ice Age predator is still quietly sleeping. It never truly left them. It only learned over the long ages to trust us. But this great partnership has not come without a cost, and honesty requires that we say so plainly. In our endless desire to shape dogs to our own liking, we have sometimes pushed things much too far. Many modern breeds now suffer for the way that we have bred them. Some flat-faced dogs can barely breathe. Others are born with bodies that are prone to pain and to illness. We have reshaped these animals profoundly, for better and at times, sadly, for worse. And still, through all of it, dogs remain utterly unlike any other creature we have ever welcomed into our world.
Cats simply live near us. Cows tolerate us. Horses agree to work alongside us. But dogs joined us. They threw in their lot with ours, completely and without reservation. Where we went, they went. Whatever we faced, they faced it right beside us. They slept beside us while predators circled just beyond the dying firelight. They crossed frozen, brutal landscapes at our side. They guarded our sleeping children through the night. They followed us into storms, into great migrations, into wars, and onto entirely new continents at the very edges of the known world. And somewhere along that long and difficult road, this relationship became something far deeper than mere usefulness. There is a grave discovered in Germany that is around 14,000 years old. Inside it, archaeologists found a man, a woman, and buried carefully right alongside them, a dog. And when they studied that dog's bones, they uncovered something that can take your breath clean away. As a young pup, that dog had been gravely ill, sick enough that it surely should have died. But it did not die. It survived for weeks, and perhaps even for months, which can only mean one thing: someone cared for it. In one of the harshest environments human beings have ever faced, where every last scrap of food and every ounce of energy was precious beyond all measure, these ancient people chose to spend their time, their warmth, and their food nursing a sick little puppy slowly back to health.
That is no longer about survival. That is no longer about a useful animal by the fire. That is attachment. That is friendship. That, perhaps, is even love. And 14,000 years later, we are still doing exactly the same thing, caring for these animals as though they were our own family. Because, of course, they are. And all of it, every single bit of it, began with nothing more than a few frightened wolves creeping just a little closer to the warmth of a fire in the dark. No master plan, no grand invention, just scraps in the snow and a flicker of curiosity, slowly and quietly turning fear into the greatest friendship our species has ever known. Tonight, your best friend will fall asleep somewhere near you, with no idea at all that this is the very reason it lies there beside you. Every wag of its tail is a faint echo of that ancient choice made out in the cold beside a fire long ago. a story tens of thousands of years in the making, but now, at long last, you know it too. If this moved you, then take a moment to look at your dog a little differently tonight and tell us in the comments, what is your dog's name and what is the most wonderfully wolf-like thing it still does? The circling, the howling, the burying, the dreaming. We read every single one, and there is nothing we love more than this community sharing the animals who walked straight out of the Ice Age and into our hearts.
And if you would like more gentle journeys into the hidden story of the creatures we love, where they came from, what they feel, and what they understand about us, then subscribe and stay close, because there is so much more wonder still waiting just ahead. Thank you for being here with us today, and until the next one, give that ancient friend of yours an extra scratch behind the ears.